Well, hi and welcome to Two Worlds Better from the home of Ducati, not in Bologna, Italy, but in Northampton, or just outside it. And I'm sitting astride the new ST2, a big departure for Ducati. It's silver for one thing, not traditional red, but it's a touring bike, nice fairing and panniers. Let's have a quick look round. Here's a first for Ducati, decent mirrors. You can see more than your elbows on these, you can see what's behind, which is a pleasant change. The fairing itself, nice two-piece plastic job, very nicely finished and giving a fair amount of protection. The screen's fairly short, but nevertheless it protected me from excessive wind blast. Equally, the dashboard's very neat, complete with a digital display. There we've got the temperature, the time, and these bars here give you the state of the fuel tank. And so there's just one bar missing on the end there, but as it decreases, so the bars decrease. Up there you've got your neutral indicator, ignition warning indicators, fuel, low light, dip to main beam, etc. And of course you can reset the mileometer on the little trip reset. Very neat layout. Comfort is part and parcel of touring, and you don't want clip-on bars on a touring bike, so these are bolted onto the top yoke. Very neat they are too. I don't think I've ever seen bars on a Ducati as high as this one. And talking about comfort, a nice big dual seat, adequate for a pillion passenger, and it's even removable. And there we go, under there you've got a toolkit. There's a bigger toolkit than that one normally, this is just a small one we've got on the test bike. Everything accessible, the electrics, the shock absorber, and the remote reservoir for the shocker. Well, no touring bike is complete without panniers, and this has got a pair of panniers. Easy to remove and equally easy to open. They are fully lockable, so you just turn the key and with a bit of luck, push the catch. There we are. Retainers there to stop all your luggage spilling out on the side of the autostrada or autobahn or even motorway. And these panniers are even big enough to get a full face helmet in, so a bit tricky to get around that webbing, but you don't want the thing falling out on you anyway. Fit the old helmet in there, then the top comes up, lock, and there we go, ready to go. But not only that, you can also turn the key the other way and release the pannier completely. And this is what you do. Lift up this plate at the back. That's it, the pannier's off, and away you go. And surprise, surprise, another first for Ducati. Well, not first, but first for a while. It's even got a centre stand. It's easy to operate too. Just take it off the prop stand. It's got a side lever on here, which you can grab hold of. A decent foot pad on the centre stand down. Good old tug, and away it goes. Easy. Think of Ducati, and even if you don't think of Foggy, I'll bet you'll think of Focus sports bikes. Well, get your thinking caps on, because this is the Sportturismo, or ST2 as it is more mundanely called. A bike for touring with, would you believe, pillion and luggage aboard. Plus, I've been out on the ST2, very impressive bike, and I really did like it. But tell me, what was the thinking behind the ST2? How did it come about?
ST2 stands for Sportturismo, and Ducati were looking to create a machine which gives you the best of both worlds. Long distance traveling, but at the same time retaining its sporting characteristics. And this is a model we didn't have before. We had many different sports bikes, but which performed very well, but somewhat were uncomfortable to do long distances on. And ST2 was created to do exactly that. And if you look at it, when you remove the panniers, you can raise the silencers to lean it a bit over more. And it is the only bike we know which truly justifies its name. It is a proper sports tourer.
Using a bored-out 944cc liquid-cooled, fuel-injected V-twin, this is definitely not a 916 with clothes on. It's got Desmo valve gear all right, but this time opening 2 valves, not 4. Based on the old Passo 906 motor, this one has been tuned to be relaxed. Producing 79 brake horse when spinning at 8,500 revs underlines its smooth, if not massive, power delivery, especially in the very usable rev range of between 5 to 7,000 revs. Here it's all torque, a sort of wind up and go. In fact, it pulls cleanly from only 3,000 revs in top, very un-Ducati-like. What is Ducati-like though, is a very crisp and light 6-speed gearbox, making the very best of this particular Bologna V. The steel trellis frame is instantly recognisable as Ducati and lives up to its well-earned reputation. Coupled to its top quality, fully adjustable shower suspension, beefy 43mm fork stanchions up front, single monoshock at the rear, the Duke kept to its line, soaking up the bumps but without compromising any comfort. Brakes are well up to the job too. Brembo 4-pot squeezing twin 320mm discs up front and a single Brembo setup at the rear, needless to say, had no trouble at all in stopping the plot. At 212 kilos, weight-wise it's pitched well against the opposition. Its extra weight partly accounted for by, dare I say it, a sensible fairing. Add to this decent mirrors, a 21-litre fuel tank giving a 200-mile range, a wide and well-padded seat, and you've actually got comfort. It makes you wonder what's going on. Sense and comfort, can this really be a Ducati? Yes it is. It's still sufficiently different from the crowd. It's got style, it's got sound, it's got character, and it's got the name, Ducati. At £8,900 with a 2-year unlimited mileage warranty, it's even got value for money.
Customers and dealers. One really can't live without the other. Now, I'm not really trying to suggest that customers, that's you chaps out there, are trying to be awkward. But there are occasions...
Just a minute, did you...
Hello then, mate. How are you
Are you
diddling?
talking about me?
Well, I did refer to someone being awkward.
You mentioned awkward customers.
Yeah, well, you are one of my most awkward customers.
I'm your model customer in here.
Really?
Yeah.
And I can do well without model customers, yeah.
So what's this about being awkward?
And what I'm trying to say is, and I know people find it difficult to understand me most of the time, but what I'm trying to say is that if the customer knew a little bit more about what they own, the model of bike they've got, when they ask for something, then they're going to get the right bit first time.
Yeah, because I suppose some people don't know what they're riding, exactly what they're riding.
It's true.
Model-wise.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, the scenario of I've got a Ford Escort. Well,
Yeah.
what model Ford Escort is it? Well, it's a blue one.
That's right.
You know, and it's the same. It's like I've got a GS550. What model GS550? Well, the E, of course. Well, E is a starter, and then there's 13 other models to go with it.
But is it not true that you can go and buy a bike from a dealer, or even go and buy one privately, and you buy this model and it's known as this, and it says it's this. The manufacturer calls it something else.
Yes, yeah, he has a different reference system.
Well, that's a bit confusing, isn't it?
Well, it can be, but it's you have to scribble it down on your notepad or something and just remind yourself. But it is true. GPZs, for example, Kawasaki GPZs are really ZXs.
That's right.
And a ZX something, and then it is an A1, 2, 3. It can be a D, it can be a G, or whatever.
Right. So it's all right. We need to know what we've got. So how do we find out what we've got?
More often than not, you might have documentation to give you relevance, but the easiest and the most accurate way, really, no doubt about this, is just to go off the frame number.
Right.
And you'll find that behind the headstock, or in that vicinity, or on a very large metal plate, suggesting it's Kawasaki, you know, heavy industries and whatever model, and so on.
Yeah.
Get the frame number, take it to your dealer, and he will, in turn, he will translate that into his reference for the bike, and what you might already know as GPZ, GS, CB or whatever. You've got your manuals, of course.
Well, your manuals will tell you exactly where to find everything, won't they?
Yeah,
really?
yeah. In the manual, it will have at the beginning of the book, it will refer to what model you own, and in doing that, you can then, well, it'll tell you, for example, those of you who are not so sure, where the frame number's kept, where the engine number's kept, and so on. And they're a Bible, you know. I mean, everyone should have one. They're not a high cost thing, you know. Like 14 quid buys you a good one.
Many a Sunday afternoon, slogging over one of them. Yeah.
Have you nothing better to do?
No, but it's annoying, isn't it? There's nothing worse than going in a shop and getting what you think is the right part because you think that's what you own, and getting home, getting all your tools out, and getting your gear on and your overalls, and then finding the.
It's usually Sunday afternoon when the shop's shut.
When everything's shut, that's right, and you'd arranged to go for a ride that night.
And of course, you know, I can understand it, but Monday morning, they come in, you know, I bought that, what you're going to do about it, it don't fit, you know. Right enough. We all make mistakes, you know, it's all human error, and reference books can be sometimes incorrect. And nowadays, reference books and computer programs are fantastic. I mean, they're really very good. But of course, you've got the problem of parallel imports and these grey imports, of which that makes another angle that we have a problem with, because there's so many models that are officially UK imported. There's twice as many models that are grey imported. Middly models.
Twice as metal models?
Yeah, that's what I said, middly eye.
So what you're saying is get it right, help the dealer to help you.
Yeah.
And you won't have a problem.
Well, hopefully not.
Right.
Unless you come to our shop. We've got a theory, you see. If you give the wrong stuff away first time, they'll come back. And the only way that anyone ever comes back to our shop is with the wrong stuff.
Well, you go everywhere twice, don't you? Second time to apologise. I'm going now, leave you with your books.
Jim, thanks very much, and I won't miss you.
Race bikes are incredibly complicated bits of kit, and they're very sophisticated. And here's a sophisticated guy with me. This is Matthew Carter of PI. They look after all the data logging on the bikes. Matthew, what have we actually got here?
Right, this is Pi System 1 data logging for motorbikes. We have a data logger fitted on the front here, which has various sensors over the bike, which it collects and then you download at the end of the lap.
So to log data, it's got sensors all over the bike. What actually is this one got?
That's correct. It has a front wheel speed sensor to get to know that the bike's moving. We have an RPM signal from the ignition. We have a beacon for the lap time, and we have a gyro for map making.
When you say a beacon, this isn't a flashing light, is it?
No, that's right. We have a beacon transmitter on the pit wall, which has an infrared light, and then you have a receiver on the bike. As it goes through the light, it stops the time that you've got on that lap and starts the next one.
And looking at the display there, the rider can actually monitor his lap speed as well.
That's right. Here on the left-hand side of the screen, he can display anything that he chooses that's logging. On the right-hand side, it flips up his time every lap.
And this gyro, it's in a very sensitive part there at the front of the seat. It monitor private parts.
Yeah, sensitive sensor in a sensitive place. We cleared it with John earlier. It's mounted there in the middle of the bike, so you get a good reading. It gives you a map of the circuit, so when you look at the data in the evening, John can see where he's taken his lines, etc., and what revs and gears he was in.
This map of the circuit, this isn't pre-programmed, it's actually reading lean angles and G-forces, is it?
That's right. You can have different maps for different situations, a wet map, a dry map, etc. And also John may take a slightly different line to Ian or something, and you can just, gives you the rider's exact line rather than the concrete on the track.
Well, Matthew, I've got the black box in my hand. Very lightweight it feels as well.
Yes.
So what happens now?
Right, what we do now is we come in after the session. We then plug in the computer into the logger, like so. The information is downloaded within 2 seconds.
And I see you've got it on the toolbox. Is there any reason?
That's right. Well, the team used the data logging in the computer just as another tool. Enabling them to gather information about the bike and make decisions to change.
So it's in its rightful place. Okay, exactly. Far away then.
So we have here the gyro generated map, so you have the position on the track, etc. We've got the arrow there is where the beacon is on the pit wall, so they know where they're getting their lap times from.
So this is one John Reynolds did earlier,
This is one he did this morning,
yeah. Yeah, okay.
You've then got the outline of the track, which is the actual line that he's taken, and you can then add on the split times, which is giving you the times between all of those points, so he can reference those with each individual lap to see where he's gained and lost time.
It's a brilliant piece of kit. And are there sort of other pages behind it? I mean, you can manipulate the data, no doubt.
Yes, you can. You can graph any of the traces, like revs.
Oh, right, yeah.
You've then got an outlap there with the revs trace, and you can see on the PC the cursor moves on the on the map.
Just like they do on the telly when they're in the position of cars then, yeah.
Exactly,
so it's, and again, all this is your own kit, you've designed all this?
Yes, we've developed all of the hardware ourselves, we design all the boards, the black boxes, and we write all the software ourselves as well.
And I think this little slogan here captured it all, and it's not big, but it is clever.
Exactly what the system is.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, Matthew.
Thank you.
Well, no matter what you do to your bike, if you set the engine up and all the rest of it, you're not going to go anywhere unless you've got the suspension straight. I've got with me Wayne Lamb of Proflex. They've developed special shock absorbers, and Reve Racing are running with one. Wayne, tell us about this special shock that you got on here.
Yeah, the shock absorber works different to a conventional unit. By just on the damping side, instead of having just shims and a piston, we also have a needle down the centre of the body, which can be made to various tapers. so that the damping can be made to the rider's requirements, like soft, slow, and then soft again, which is basically like a carburettor. But also the other thing that this shock incorporates is a heat-sensitive damping control. So as all conventional shocks, as the shock starts to work and the oil gets warm, it gets thinner, which often causes shock fade. But in this, the thermostat works from 0 degrees to 130 degrees. So whatever you set the damping at, it stays constant.
Well, is that an electrical thermostat or what?
No, it's a patented design. It's a bit like a fluid in a thermostat in a car.
Yeah, or on a radiator control on your domestic radiator.
Yes, yeah.
So it's adjustability really that yours has got.
It's more fine tuning.
Yeah.
You can really fine tune it to the rider's requirements.
Okay, now you do road shocks as well, do you? If the road rider wants one.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about, have you got any hints and tips for us for setting up suspensions? A lot of mystique to it. I mean, can you give us some tips on our bikes we've got outside?
Yeah, I can give you some quick tips to give the riders some idea.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. Okay, Wayne, here's my bike. What's some sort of simple tips from ground up, as it were?
Right, the first thing we need to do is see what sort of travel you're getting on the rear shock and on the front forks. And by doing that, we just use electrical tyre wrap around the forks at the top and also at the top on the rear shock, which then slides down to show you how much travel you're getting.
Yeah, so as the suspensions come up, it'll move that and leave it there on the stand.
And then you can see then if it's going through the bump stop or only halfway, so then you can know if your spring rate is soft or too hard.
Yeah, so you can really see what effect you've had on altering it then.
That's right, and then as you change the damping yourself, you can see then how much or how little that the tyre wrap works after that.
I saw you with some of the other guys, you were actually pressing the bike in the middle on the tank. What was the idea of that?
Yes, to try and get the bike to match, the rear and the front should both match, and to do this, you find the middle of the bike, we can get it up.
Don't drop it.
And you press with both hands, and the back and the front should go down together. But on this one, they don't, because the forks are harder than what the rear is.
Right. But is that something that you can find to a rider's preference? I've actually found that the front forks are okay. It's the back that I've found too hard.
That's right. So then you suit which way it is. So then you have to alter the back to come down the same as the front.
Now, on the Ducati, these really are multi-adjustable on these Olands, aren't they? You can actually do rebound, preload, the whole caboodle.
That's right, yeah, which basically you need.
Yeah.
If you buy Japanese stock stuff, they've only got a few adjustments. They're easier for the guys to use, but there's not a lot of adjustments on them.
Okay, well, if we go to the Honda CBR behind, which happens to be Mr. Paul Johnston's. Right, so what can we do with Paul's?
We do the same thing again. We try the tyre wrap on the front forks and on the rear shock. Press the bike in the middle to see if the suspension matches. Which on this one, it's a little bit better because we've had a play with it this morning, but we're fully on the adjustments now.
Right.
We've got no adjustments left, which means if the rider can't get what he wants, then the shock has to come off and be re-shimmed to his requirements.
And what sort of adjustment can you get? I mean, this is typical of many sports bikes, so what's the sort of range that you can get?
The range is, well, for the road it's adequate, but if you was to start racing, then you need to go up on the damping.
Right, so on the front forks here, we can do the preload on the springs, can't we?
Yeah, if you was to race this, you would go up on the oil weight and just harden the damping up right through.
And adjustments for the rear shock, that was down here on the swinging arm?
Yeah, the trouble is with this model here, it only has adjustments for the rebound, and obviously you can adjust the spring. But to fine tune it, you really need compression damping.
Okay, and we can just see the two adjusters, if you could just point those out to us.
Yeah, the two adjusters, if you a little hole through there to put your screwdriver in, and that alters the rebound to fast or slow, whichever way you want to do it.
Yeah. Now, is it something that the ordinary guy watching this should do, or what? Are there any warnings on this?
Not really, because basically the bike is just a mass-produced bike, so it's just set up for, you know, for anybody, and the suspension's there for them to play with.
And so, I mean, what I'd always do, if you're going to move it on the clicks, is sort of take a note of where you're starting, at least so you can put it all back if you do make a mess of it. That's
right, but when you find most of the bikes when they come out, like the Yamaha we did this morning...
Well, if you like, we'll just have a look at that one.
The rebound was coming far too quick, which really is more dangerous than not. As the shock started to get even hotter, it started to fade, and as he said, it was throwing him about a bit.
And you quite quickly evaluated that just by bouncing on the back. Could you give us a demonstration of that, Wayne?
Will do.
Now, you've had a play with this one now, haven't you?
That's right, yeah. It's before, when we pressed it down, it was turning too quick.
Yeah.
It was like nearly picking the back wheel off the ground. It was topping out. Also, when you set your bike up, you must also make sure that when you alter the preload on the spring, that you always have a touch of sag, which means you can pick a free weight up, probably 3 or 4 mil.
Yeah, so that means the sag means the spring is already partially compressed.
That's right. So when on the return dampen, it's not topping out, it's not kicking the back wheel up.
Yeah. And are you always available for advice, or is there a charge for that, Wayne?
No, the advice is all free.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for Wayne from Proflex.
Thank you.